Chapter 1776 Mei Ting pays a visit. Chapter 1776 Mei Ting pays a visit. After cultivators from the Holy Land of Taichu left, the huge crowd outside of the Heavenly Mandate Academy also dispersed reluctantly. Yi Futian's group returned to the academy. Lord Taishin glanced around at the crowd and said, "Now that a storm has been stirred up in the 9 realms, I hope that the cultivators of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path can stand united and overcome this chaotic situation together. I also hope that friends from the outer realms will not stir up trouble. It is as Yi Futian has said, regardless of whether we are from the outer realms, the Void Realm, or the original realm, these are all lands of the Divine Prefecture. Dong Huang the Great unified the Divine Prefecture in the hopes of making martial arts prosper. This is also the goal of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. We hope to spread our teachings across the world and cause martial arts to prosper, cultivating even more outstanding teachers of martial arts in the future." Lord Taishin continued, "Of course, if our friends from the outer realms have their own opinions, they can come and sit down with the Heavenly Mandate Academy to discuss things. We can learn from each other and improve our relations. That is all I have to say for today. Farewell." After hearing Lord Taishuan's words, the various cultivators left one after another. The cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate realm were somewhat reluctant. Many youths were asking, "When will the Heavenly Mandate Academy take in new disciples again? I don't know." However, wanting to join the Heavenly Mandate Academy now will most likely be even more difficult, someone lamented. The people around him all nodded their heads in agreement. Recent events caused the Heavenly Mandate Academy to become even more famous. In today's battle, Yi Futian and his group fully displayed the grandeur of the cultivators of the Void Realm and crushed the cultivators of the Divine Prefecture's training Holy Land who came to challenge them. Such a glorious battle would certainly be one for the history books. In the future, if Yi Futian and Yu Xing stood at the top of the world, this would be a crowning moment on their road to glory, a moment in the past of legendary figures. The next time the Heavenly Mandate Academy accepted disciples, many people would want to join them. Most likely, even figures who had already made a name for themselves would want to join the Heavenly Mandate Academy to cultivate. I wonder how Yi Futian, Yu Sheng, and the others train. The difference between them and us is truly enormous, someone lamented. The difference in their talent was too huge. The members of the Holy Land of Taichu from the Divine Prefecture could not be considered weak. Sima Zhao's War God's true will of waves had peerless attack and defense. However, it was forcefully suppressed by Yu Sheng and shattered with a punch. When the 7th wave of Tai sword burst forth from Mu Chinka, he shattered the space with just a finger. Nevertheless, he still lost to Yi Futian. Prior to that, even Nen Luoshan was sent flying backward by the sword will of Mu Chinka during their short exchange. If the two of them had engaged on the battlefield, Nen Luoshan would have certainly lost. It was actually apparent from a simple exchange. Currently, can Yi Futian be considered the top figure of the generation? Someone wondered. Of course, in the generation, among those of the same plane, it is impossible for anyone in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path to be able to defeat him. If there are such people, it is only possible if they are also in the Heavenly Mandate Academy, someone to the side said with a laugh. Yu Sheng. Maybe, the person who had spoken before replied with a laugh. Yet, alone in this generation, Yi Futian and Yu Sheng will most likely be two of the most outstanding figures in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path ever since Dong Huang the Great unified the Divine Prefecture. They might even be the two most outstanding figures. The person to the side was stunned when he heard these words. He stopped in his tracks and revealed a pondering look. However, after pondering for a bit, he also realized this and agreed with it somewhat. After Dong Huang the Great unified the Divine Prefecture, there indeed had never been a figure that could cause uproars time and time again at the lower-level Renhuang plane like this. Yi Futian had also already formed a team of flawless divine will possessors. This was too frightening. It was not inappropriate to call him the most outstanding figure. Now, they could only wait and see whether Yi Futian could one day rule over the 9 realms. In the Heavenly Mandate Academy, Yi Futian and the others arrived back one after another. Although they had pushed back the cultivators of the Holy Land of Taichu, Yi Futian did not feel happy. The Holy Land of Taichu had directly come knocking on their door to challenge them and wanted to replace them. This could only mean that the current situation in the Nine Realms was getting more and more chaotic. The forces of the Divine Prefecture already could not wait to take over the Nine Realms and replace the original forces. From this battle, Yi Futian had also gotten a faint grasp on the strength of these top forces of the Divine Prefecture. Although his side had won, Yi Futian had witnessed the abilities of Mu Qingke, Sima Shao, and even that swordsman. If Yi Futian, Yu Xing, as well as his third older brother hadn't been the ones fighting, they would have lost this battle. Moreover, this group was just a fraction of the power of the Holy Land of Taichu. It was difficult to imagine how frightening the background of the Holy Land of Taichu in the Divine Prefecture was. The difference between them and the Heavenly Mandate Academy was too huge. However, this was also understandable. The forces of the Divine Prefecture in the Outer Realms had countless competitors for eons. Yi Futian's group could not possibly imagine what huge figures had been born from such conditions. The Heavenly Mandate Academy could be compared with such giants. Even if they were an alliance of many forces, they were still no match for the forces of the Divine Prefecture. From the attitude that Song Imperial City and the Holy Land of Taichu bore against the Heavenly Mandate Academy, one could sense such a sentiment. These top forces did not only contain arrogant people. Song Imperial City had wanted to directly guide them, the Holy Land of Taichu had wanted to directly replace them. This proved one thing: the overall ability of the other party was far superior to their own each time. Older brother, what is that fourth divine wheel of yours? What happened in the divine wheel dimension? Dou Zhao asked as he looked curiously at Yi Futian. Many people immediately also looked at him. They all wanted to know what had happened. Prior to this, during the battle with the Shen clan, Yi Futian had also defeated Shen Hao in such a manner. It is a boundary wheel, Yi Futian replied. A boundary wheel? Dou Zhao was somewhat confused. He did not really understand. It can forge a self-contained space of the Great Path. It can even imprison the way of others, Yi Futian explained without hiding anything. Imprison? In a low voice, Xiaomu asked, Master, how does it imprison the way of others? Within my divine wheel dimension, others will not be able to communicate with the powers of heaven and earth. They will be severed from the Great Path, Yi Futian explained. Say, for example, the other party is proficient in the Great Path of space. If they are unable to escape my boundary wheel's dimension and attempt to use the Great Path of space to whisk themselves away, the passageway of the Great Path that they create will be imprisoned and severed. It sounds like an even more advanced divine wheel, Xiaomu mumbled. In the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, divine wheels are categorized into levels such as flawless level, celestial level, and so on. However, in supreme forces like ours, there is only the distinction of flawless or flawed divine wheels. If so, then in the Divine Prefecture of the Outer Realms, are flawless divine wheels also classified according to ranks? Or should it be said that there are levels higher than flawless? I do not know, Yi Futian replied. However, there might exist such levels. In reality, Yi Futian's fourth divine wheel was forged with the World Tree's life spirit as its foundation, and it was unique. He knew that his way was a flawless one. It might actually be different from others. Master, you seem unhappy, Xiaomu commented. So many forces have their eyes on the Heavenly Mandate Academy. What is there to be happy about? Yi Futian responded with a smile. The 9 realms are in chaos. Our Heavenly Mandate Academy is among the first few to be swept into this chaos. I do not know whether or not we should be proud of our Heavenly Mandate Academy's influence. The crowd was also speechless. It seemed that it was indeed the case. The Heavenly Mandate Academy was the first to be swept into this chaos. First, it was the Dark Army who had descended. Now, the Holy Land of Taichu had also come. I hope that we have more time, Yi Futian thought to himself. Currently, he felt that his training was progressing too slowly. However, at his current level of cultivation, further improvement was indeed too difficult. This speed of cultivation was already extremely fast. If it were ordinary Renhuangs like Emperor Xia, wanting to break through to the next plane was almost impossible. This chaotic situation in the 9 realms would certainly last for a very long time. The forces from the outer realms are strong. However, right now, since the Heavenly Mandate Academy has formed alliances with various forces, it is not a place that the outer realms forces can easily lay their hands on, Nen Luoshan voiced out softly. If the Heavenly Mandate Academy is faced with trouble, the other forces will not sit still. Yi Futian nodded in acknowledgement. With Emperor Nan as my support, I can indeed be at ease. The teleportation grand matrix of the Heavenly Mandate Academy was now connected to various major forces. If war really erupted, strong aid would step in. With Divine Palace Lord, Emperor Nan, and other top figures around, the Heavenly Mandate Academy was capable of taking on all sorts of big battles. Everyone, go back to your own training, Yi Futian said. All the cultivators left one by one and went back to their own training. This battle continued to be the topic of conversation in Heavenly Mandate City. Gradually, the news of this battle spread throughout the 9 realms. Other than Yi Futian, Yu Sheng's name was now renowned throughout the 9 realms. The next day, everything returned to its normal peaceful condition. Yi Futian was cultivating quietly. However, at that moment, a silhouette suddenly appeared outside the palace. It was Lord Taishan. He was staring straight ahead into the distance. Dark streaks of wind flowed over without a sound or presence. Then, they formed a black-robed silhouette that silently appeared in the inner quarters of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. All this actually happened without a sound. Mei Ting. Lord Taishuan's facial expression turned ugly. It was too dangerous for a figure like Mei Ting to suddenly arrive and directly enter into the inner quarters of the Heavenly Mandate Academy without a trace. What business do you have with us? Lord Taishuan's body was tense. He seemed anxious. Mei Ting cast a glance at Lord Taishan, saying, I am here for some matters. Do not alarm the rest. Lord Taishan revealed a strange look. He did not understand. Did Mei Ting not want to alert the others? He still stood there motionless, contemplating countermeasures. He was not sure exactly how powerful Mei Ting's cultivation was. It was certainly more powerful than his own. He only needed to delay the other party for a while. When the others came over through the teleportation grand matrix, they could surround Mei Ting. However, if they attacked, it would bring calamity to the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Before you can possibly pose a threat to me, what do you think will happen to the Heavenly Mandate Academy? You better consider it carefully. Mei Ting's eyes were jet black. His voice was extremely calm. What he said was exactly what Lord Taishan was worried about. Mei Ting walked straight in. Yi Futian said, Lord Taishan, please let Senior Mei in. When the Dark Army descended, and Mei Ting had appeared, Dragon Master had mentioned to Yi Futian that Mei Ting had paid a visit to dragon gods. He had also killed the demonic dragon. However, Yi Futian could vaguely sense that this matter was not as simple as it appeared. It might be related to Yu Sheng. Otherwise, Yi Futian could not think of other reasons why such a terrifying existence would kill the demonic dragon. Now that Mei Ting was here, Yi Futian was even more certain that his arrival was linked to Yu Sheng. The only connection between the demonic dragon and the Heavenly Mandate Academy was Yu Sheng. Yi Futian had always wondered about the true identity of his godfather. This Mei Ting might be related to his godfather. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1777 Provocation? Chapter 1777 Provocation? Mei Ting walked over to Yi Futian's side. Lord Taishan still stood in his spot, alert. Mei Ting was too strong. With him here and in such close proximity with Yi Futian, it would only take Mei Ting a split second if he decided to kill Yi Futian. A figure at Mei Ting's level was not someone Yi Futian could defend against. Everyone else, please go about your own business. It is better if you keep quiet about my visit, Mei Ting said to Lord Taishan, his back to him. Right now, Mei Ting was also hesitating. Should he act on it now, or should he go back to the devil world first? At first, he was only here to look for news about that person. However, he had found the person's descendant now. This matter involved the noblest bloodline of the devil world. Even as a devil general who could make decisions regarding most matters, Mei Ting did not dare to act recklessly. Hence, he still opted to have a meeting with Yi Futian first. However, before Mei Ting came to his final decision, he did not want to expose Yu Sheng's identity to the rest. Therefore, he warned Lord Taishan not to spread news about his visit. "Lord Taishan, I am fine here. Senior Mei and I are just having a casual chat. Please seal this space," Yi Futian said. Lord Taishan glanced at Yi Futian and saw the latter giving him a nod of reassurance. Since Yi Futian knew what he was doing, Lord Taishan would not say any more. He turned around and left, sealing off the space with his will. Others could not invade the space even with their divine consciousness. Judging from the fact that Mei Ting had personally come to meet Yi Futian, Lord Taishan had a feeling that the matter that they were about to discuss was huge. It might be related to some secrets. Since Lord Taishan first met Yi Futian on Taishan Mountain, he had always acknowledged Yi Futian as a talented figure with an outstanding temperament. Yi Futian's performance since then had been impressive as well. Now, Lord Taishan would not be surprised even if one revealed that Yi Futian might have other identities. After all, Yi Futian's talent was extraordinary. Moreover, there was still Yu Sheng. After Lord Taishan left, Yi Futian bowed slightly towards Mei Ting and said, "Junior Yi Futian welcomes Senior Mei." Mei Ting stepped forward and stood not far from Yi Futian. He was dressed in black clothes and had eyes as deep as the abyss. By just standing there, he already made Yi Futian feel pressured. His aura was too powerful. This person before him was a top figure who could fend off the Dark Army with just a single sentence. "Who are you?" Mei Ting asked as he looked at Yi Futian. This was what he was curious about. "I am Yi Futian," Yi Futian said. Mei Ting frowned and said, "You know that is not what I am asking." "But that is all that I know," Yi Futian responded. Once he finished saying this, demonic might descended on him. There seemed to be a suffocating pressure acting around him. Mei Ting stared at him and threatened, "You should already know about the demonic dragon." He was also unwilling to speak about this. You know how it ended for him. I came looking here after dealing with him. It was obvious that he was hinting that he had learned of Yu Sheng's existence from the demonic dragon and hence had come looking for him here. Since Senior has come looking for me and not Yu Sheng, that means that you also know that Yu Sheng himself does not know about his identity. It is the same for me. I am afraid that I do not have the answers that Senior is seeking, Yi Futian replied honestly. On the contrary, I also wish to ask Senior the same question. Who is Yu Sheng? Mei Ting revealed a strange look when he heard Yi Futian asking him the question back. Indeed, he had heard from the demonic dragon that Yu Sheng himself also did not know his own identity. Hence, Mei Ting had chosen to find Yi Futian. He had heard that ever since they came to the heavenly mandate realm, Yu Sheng followed behind Yi Futian, as though he was Yi Futian's shadow. Therefore, Mei Ting had ultimately chosen to find Yi Futian first to see whether he could learn anything from Yi Futian. However, Yi Futian actually asked him who Yu Sheng was. Judging from Yi Futian's extremely calm manner, he most likely had some rough guesses, but might not have known the truth. He did not appear to be lying. Could it be possible that even these two juniors did not know their own origins? However, this also seemed to be that person's way of doing things. For Yi Futian to ask who Yu Sheng was naturally the same as asking who Mei Ting was. He was referring to their backgrounds. Mei Ting clearly would not answer Yi Futian. Today, he had come to ask questions, not answer them. What is your relationship with Emperor Yi Qing? Mei Ting asked as he stared at Yi Futian. His eyes gradually became even more frightening. Demonic might pressed down on Yi Futian. Even if Mei Ting believed that Yi Futian was not lying, it was impossible for him to let the matter go just like that. Emperor Yi Qing had the surname Yi. What was Yi Futian's relationship with him? Could it be that Yi Futian was the descendant of Emperor Yi Qing? From Mei Ting's perspective, the possibility was extremely high. Upon hearing Mei Ting's words, Yi Futian knew that Mei Ting might know more than he had imagined. Although he did not answer Yi Futian, Mei Ting certainly knew about Yu Sheng's background. Where is Yu Sheng's father? Mei Ting continued interrogating Yi Futian. He walked forward, and his pressure pressed down on Yi Futian. Immediately, a terrifying demonic might surged into Yi Futian's mind. This caused a frightening demonic shadow to appear deep within Yi Futian's pupils. Yi Futian's gaze slowly changed. It turned somewhat cold. I invited Senior in and asked Lord Taishan to leave as a sign of my sincerity. However, if Senior wishes to act in such a manner, even if I have to fight to the death, I will not yield, Yi Futian said in a cold tone. Also, even if Senior truly can make it out of here in one piece by injuring me, I can assure you that Yu Sheng will spend the rest of his life trying to kill you with all his might. Mei Ting was a demonic cultivator. Yi Futian conjectured the relationship between Mei Ting and Yu Sheng. Hence, he had said so as a probe. As expected, after listening to Yi Futian's threat, Mei Ting paused for a moment. The pressure that he exerted on Yi Futian lessened significantly. He seemed to be hesitating. Mei Ting's response verified Yi Futian's prediction. Yu Sheng's background was most likely very noble. Even Mei Ting had his concerns when he was up against Yu Sheng. He might not dare to offend Yu Sheng. If Mei Ting was here to capture Yu Sheng, or if he didn't care about Yu Sheng's identity, then he could have just ignored Yi Futian's threat. However, after wavering for a moment, Mei Ting continued to pressure Yi Futian with his might. An alarming demonic will invaded Yi Futian's mind. Mei Ting's pupils were as dark as night. Yi Futian carried some secrets with him. These secrets might be related to Emperor Yi Qing and that person. If he could investigate the whole matter thoroughly, he believed that the Devil Emperor would not blame him for acting rashly. He would accept it even if Yu Sheng was going to hate him in the future. Therefore, after considering for a moment, Mei Ting still decided to invade Yi Futian's mind. He would not hurt Yi Futian, but he needed to know his background, and from there, he might be able to locate that person. Stop it. A chilly voice sounded. Mei Ting paused momentarily and turned around. A burly youth was standing behind him while staring at him with an extremely cold gaze. He was none other than Yu Sheng. Mei Ting stared at Yu Sheng. At this very moment, the former had no idea how he should face the latter. Yu Sheng was the descendant of a legendary figure of the Devil World. However, the legendary figure was a traitor of the Devil World. Yu Sheng was the son of the traitor of the Devil World. Although Yu Sheng was the son of the traitor, the noblest bloodline of the Devil World still coursed through his veins. This was an undeniable fact. He might also be the only one among the younger generations who possessed this bloodline. Based on this, Mei Ting would definitely not dare to hurt Yu Sheng. Only the Devil Emperor had the power to decide Yu Sheng's fate. The demonic might lingered, but the pressure it exerted on Yi Futian weakened gradually. In the end, Mei Ting ceased attacking and retracted his demonic might. His gaze was still fixed on the figure who initially stood behind him. This burly youth seemed to be full of power. His indifferent gaze was domineering and cold, showing no emotions. Judging from the youth's temperament, he was an innate demonic cultivator. He was the heir of the noblest bloodline of the Devil World. Naturally, he stood head and shoulders above the rest of the demons. He was the future demon god. Mei Ting and Yu Sheng stared at each other. The former was a devil general who was all-powerful, one of the 8 great devil generals under the command of the Devil Emperor. The latter was a junior who had just broken through to the Renhuang Plain. However, he stared into Mei Ting's eyes boldly, showing no sign of fear. "Do you know who you are?" Mei Ting asked Yu Sheng. Yu Sheng stared at him and did not reply. He didn't know the answer. Remember, you do not need to bow to anyone. You do not need to follow anyone either. Not everything the person told you was true. Perhaps everything he said was a lie, Mei Ting said. Yu Sheng's gaze wavered slightly, then it turned colder. Mei Ting's words seemed to be provoking his relationship with Yi Futian. Was the person that Mei Ting had mentioned his father? However, father's words were different from Mei Ting's. In fact, father had advised him that his existence was for the use of Yi Futian. Seeing that Yu Sheng was still staring at him motionlessly, Mei Ting raised his head and glanced outside. Then, he swept a glance at Yi Futian and Yu Sheng again. Mei Ting moved back a few steps and saluted Yu Sheng with his head lowered. He seemed to be paying his respects to Yu Sheng. After that, strands of demonic will surrounded Mei Ting's body, and he transformed into a beam of dark demonic light. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared. Futian raised his head and looked at the disappearing silhouette, then he looked at Yu Sheng. He felt uneasy. Yu Sheng's identity appeared to be even more extraordinary than what he had imagined. An existence like Mei Ting had actually bowed and saluted Yu Sheng before he left. However, he seemed to disrespect Yi Futian's godfather by addressing him as that person. What exactly happened in the past? As for Mei Ting's provocation, Yi Futian did not mind it. He walked towards Yu Sheng and whispered, "No matter what decisions you make in the future, I will support you." Yu Sheng looked at him and nodded. He knew that Yi Futian would support him regardless of what he decided to do. Their relationship had long transcended the point where they needed to explain themselves to each other. It was not something Mei Ting could waver with just a line or two. Everyone else thought that he was following Yi Futian. However, he did so because he put his faith in Yi Futian. As for Yi Futian himself, he had never thought of Yu Sheng as a follower. Yu Sheng would not bat an eyelid if he needed to sacrifice himself for Yi Futian. Besides that, he was well aware that Yi Futian would do the same for him too. They had absolute trust in each other. Two silhouettes approached them. Other than Lord Taishan, another person was here. It was Emperor Nan. Clearly, Lord Taishan was worried about them. Mei Ting was too powerful, so Lord Taishan made a trip to the Nantian Divine Kingdom and invited Emperor Nan over. However, it seemed like he had worried too much. Nothing happened and Mei Ting had left. Yi Futian greets Emperor Nan. When Yi Futian saw Emperor Nan, he bowed to welcome him. He was very polite towards Emperor Nan as he was one of the figures who stood at the peak of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Moreover, Emperor Nan had obviously come here to help him. Emperor Nan nodded slightly and asked, "Why was Mei Ting here?" Yi Futian smiled while shaking his head. Seeing his expression, Emperor Nan understood Yi Futian's concern and did not probe any further. Everyone had their own secrets. Regardless of what intention Mei Ting had for coming over, it was of no consequence since nothing had happened. It looks like the Heavenly Mandate Academy still needs to strengthen its defenses. Cultivators at the level of Mei Ting are too dangerous, Emperor Nan commented. Lord Taishan nodded in strong agreement. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1778, The Curtain Unveiled. Chapter 1778, The Curtain Unveiled. While the storm was brewing in the Heavenly Mandate realm, the other realms were also constantly in turmoil. During the uproar in the Heavenly Mandate City, there were people from other realms that had come to observe this storm. After the uproar in the Heavenly Mandate Academy ended, the news rapidly swept throughout the 9 realms. The solar realm was like a huge fireball. The temperature was high. The scorching sun shone down on the land, causing it to be extremely hot. The solar realm was not suitable for ordinary people to dwell in. However, this place was heaven for cultivators who were proficient in the power of flames. The entire solar realm contained the scorching power of the sun. This power was naturally the strongest at the center of the solar realm, where Solar Divine Palace stood high above. Solar Divine Palace was truly erected in the sky above. Sun God Mountain stood tall and majestic, lifting this heavenly palace. This was where the sun rose and set. Right now, among the golden mist and clouds, inside the heavenly palace bathed in the flames of the sun god, many powerful cultivators appeared in one place. The place seemed to be a divine court. At the very top, a silhouette stood there with the sun behind him. Below, on his left and right, cultivators from various forces stood. Further away from where he stood were the cultivators of Solar Divine Palace. Right now, the figure that stood at the very top turned around and looked behind him. There, a throne appeared, together with a silhouette wielding a scepter in his hand. The silhouette with the scepter sat down on the throne. It was as though he was a deity. Immediately, everyone's gazes turned towards the silhouette on the throne. "Welcome, envoy of the sun," the cultivators said as they bowed in respect. They all knew the identity of this person. He was a top figure from the Divine Prefecture. Even the Palace Lord of Solar Divine Palace, who was the silhouette standing in front of the throne, could only stand there. Even facing the envoy of the sun, the palace lord could only succumb to him. Similar to other forces, Solar Divine Palace also had a force in the outer realms. Their force was extremely powerful. In ancient times, deity-level existences had appeared among their force. This was the origin of the Solar Divine Palace. They were merely a branch forces. Among the legends of Solar Divine Palace, in the olden days, there was a deity known as the sun god that ruled supreme. The light of the sun shone down on all living things. If the sun god got angry, he could burn the entire world. As for the place that this supreme sun god previously resided in, it was known as Solar Divine Palace. As the world changed, the sun god met his demise. However, his forces had survived up to the present day. To commemorate their ancestor, his descendants established the Solar Court. They always hoped that they could one day restore the glory of their predecessor. Up until today, the Solar Court still existed and was powerful beyond comparison. Although there were no deities born from this force, they could still be considered a force at the top of the world. Back in the day, in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, there was also a force that bore their inheritance that was named Solar Divine Palace. They hoped that in the original realm, Solar Divine Palace could rise up again one day. It was just that that day had yet to come. This was the origin of the Solar Divine Palace. Hence, after the cultivators of the Solar Court descended upon the realm, they easily took control of the Solar Divine Palace. After all, Solar Divine Palace was originally an affiliated force. The older generation was clearly aware of this. However, some youths still felt that this was all somewhat bizarre. They even began to have their own ideas regarding how things should be. Di Wu had extraordinary talent and believed that he would inherit Solar Divine Palace in the future. Now that the cultivators of the Solar Court from the Divine Prefecture had arrived, they threw his plans into disarray. Yet he could not resist. After all, his plane was still too weak. Currently, he could only slowly grow stronger and keep a low profile. The envoy of the sun sat up straight on the throne as he swept his gaze across the crowd. He appeared extremely authoritative. He said, "Have you all heard about the incident in the Heavenly Mandate realm?" The crowd nodded their heads. They already knew about the storm that occurred in the Heavenly Mandate realm. Di Wu had a slightly sinister look in his eyes. He never imagined that Yi Futian was actually that powerful. Moreover, there was also Yu Sheng. They defeated even the cultivators of the Holy Land of Taichu in the upper realms. The current Heavenly Mandate Academy, as well as Yi Futian, could be considered to be the sun in the sky. The Void Realm is also the original realm. Before this, the appearance of the Dark Maiden caused the Dark Court to utilize hell to retrieve her. Now, Yi Futian and Yu Sheng have also appeared. As expected of the original realm. I wonder whether there will be other surprises in the future, the envoy of the sun said. If that is the case, we need to take action immediately. Many cultivators narrowed their eyes. Take action? What were they going to do? The gaze of the envoy of the sun turned towards the palace lord of Solar Divine Palace as he asked, "Have the members been gathered?" "They have," the palace lord of Solar Divine Palace replied as he nodded his head. Before this, the envoy of the sun had ordered him to gather all the cultivators of the Solar Divine Palace. From this, he knew that something was about to happen, and it would be a huge war. "Then let's set out." The envoy of the sun got up and walked forward. The crowd of cultivators had yet to wrap their heads around what was happening. Set out? He seemed to have not said where they were setting out to. Hundreds of years ago, the solar realm only belonged to the Solar Court. Even now that hundreds of years have passed, of course, it is still the same, the envoy of the sun said. In the future, only one king is allowed in the solar realm. Solar Divine Palace will keep the various large forces in check. There can exist other various forces in the solar realm. However, they all need to declare the Solar Court as their king. His words caused the heart rates of the cultivators to increase. The envoy of the sun meant that they were preparing to clean out the various forces of the solar realm. There was going to be a huge cleansing. In the future, there could only be one ruling class force in the solar realm. There only needed to be one voice, And that voice would be that of the solar divine palace. Divine light shone down, and the group of cultivators set off. Qishao Divine Mountain was as usual. Many people were still training when suddenly, divine light shone down from the heavens above onto the divine mountain. The expressions of the cultivators of Qishao Divine Mountain immediately changed drastically. They all felt very overbearing auras. The next moment, it was as though various deities descended from the heavens. In the sky above, flames of the sun god rained down, seemingly wanting to destroy everything. Solar Divine Palace, what is the meaning of this? A huge voice cried out. Many top cultivators appeared at the peak of Qishao Divine Mountain. They were all looking up at the sky and questioning Solar Divine Palace. From this day forward, Qishao Divine Mountain is not allowed to rule over the solar realm. You must pledge allegiance to us and become a branch of Solar Divine Palace. Another voice traveled across the space, causing the hearts of countless cultivators on the entire Divine Mountain to beat faster. Solar Divine Palace wished to conquer the solar realm. It would not allow another force, which was at the same level, to contend with it. Qishao Divine Mountain knew that the world was going through a massive change, and the powers in the 9 realms would surely be reshuffled. However, they had not expected the change to occur so quickly and so intensely. The first force to stir up trouble was the Solar Divine Palace, and the first place they targeted was their Qishao Divine Mountain. On this day, countless people witnessed from a distance a destructive scene occurring at Qishao Divine Mountain of the solar realm. Rumor has it that a gigantic battle had erupted. In the end, Qishao Divine Mountain pledged their allegiance to Solar Divine Palace. After that, one by one, other forces in the solar realm pledged their allegiance to Solar Divine Palace. When others heard about the news, the entire solar realm went into an uproar. Gradually, the entire solar realm fell under the control of the Solar Divine Palace. A few days later, the leaders of the various large forces in the solar realm all gathered at Solar Divine Palace at the same time and held a grand event. However, they had not invited anyone from the other realms. From that moment forth, the solar realm was unified. Before this occurred in the solar realm, the Hidden Land realm was also in the same boat. Hell now ruled the Hidden Land realm. Another realm similar to these two was the Heavenly Mandate realm. The Heavenly Mandate Academy led the Heavenly Mandate realm. This model would completely sweep over the 9 realms very soon. The topmost forces from the outer realms unified individual realms. Such astonishing news very quickly spread throughout the 9 realms, stirring up a huge uproar. This storm was even worse than the one faced by the Heavenly Mandate Academy. This was a dramatic turn of events that truly swept the solar realm. In the Heavenly Mandate Academy, by the time Futian received news of this, it was already quite late. This was all within his predictions. It was just that he had not imagined that it would happen so quickly. It seemed that the force behind Solar Divine Palace was also sufficiently powerful enough to take down the entire solar realm in a short amount of time. In the Colloquy Palace, the atmosphere was somewhat solemn. "Have you all heard the news?" Lord Taishin asked. The crowd nodded. How could they not have heard such huge news? While we just received news of this incident, the Shadow Realm is now facing a similar situation. It is the same for all the other realms. Before Hell has yet to make a move, the forces of the Divine Prefecture are already preparing to divide up the 9 realms first, Lord Taishin continued. The Heavenly Mandate Realm was originally one unit. This matter is barely related to us. Lord Taishin continued. However, if our alliance members, Shangxiao Divine Palace, Nantian Divine Kingdom, Emperor Star Realms Do Tribe, Yuanyang Clan and other forces encounter such a situation, we will certainly rush to aid all of them. Each force has its representative here. I believe there are no objections? They had formed an alliance precisely to face the changes in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Now that the change had come, some things naturally needed to be agreed upon beforehand. Since we are allies, that is naturally what we should do, someone said. Nantian Divine Kingdom has no objections, Nan Luoshan replied. Do Tribe agrees to this. Other voices continued to cry out. Everyone agreed with what Lord Taishin had said. Currently, the Heavenly Mandate Academy was already not the only force to have problems. In such a chaotic situation, they could only form groups and alliances to face the future changes ahead. Each force also needs to raise your vigilance. Send cultivators to learn more about what is happening. That way, if there are changes, we can respond immediately, Lord Taishin remarked. Everyone was listening attentively with a somewhat solemn mood. Yi Futian had been in the crowd quietly all this while. The curtain of a chaotic situation that was fated to sweep over the 9 realms was officially being unveiled. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1779 The Movements of the Golden Divine Nation. Chapter 1779 The Movements of the Golden Divine Nation at the cottage of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Currently, quite a number of people had gathered here. Many cultivators, including Yi Futian, Yu Xing, Gu Donglu, and Dou Zhao were present. Nan Luotian and Xiao Muyu were around too. Each and every one of them was a legendary figure of this generation who had forged flawless divine wheels. However, all of them were sitting upright now and were listening to the lecture delivered by the person in front. The lecturer was handsome and had a scholarly bearing. His temperament was ethereal. He was none other than Emperor Nan, the legendary figure who had long made his name renowned throughout the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. This dynastic overlord of Nantian Divine Kingdom was at the cottage today to lecture about the way. Of course, everyone would give their full attention to his teachings. There are strong great paths and weak great paths, but in the end, it depends on the users. Other than the direct suppression of the divine wheel of the Great Path, the might of the Great Path is ultimately unleashed through the arts of supreme attack. Hence, cultivators in the world will try to comprehend the arts of supreme attack that are suitable for themselves. When you reach the Renhuang plane and have forged a divine wheel, you have comprehended the might of the Great Path and are free to create your own art of supreme attack. Emperor Nan continued, "Nevertheless, even though arts of supreme attack created by our ancestors do not fit you perfectly, they are still fruits of the experience accumulated by the seniors. The might of these techniques, especially those passed down by top figures, are powerful. I am sure all of you have experienced these techniques in the previous battle. The true will of waves unleashed by the battle god of the Holy Land of Taichu was impressive. If any one of you in the Heavenly Mandate realm were to attempt to unleash such an attack, you would not be able to unleash such a powerful attack even though you had comprehended the same power of the Great Path. In the end, it depends on the most suitable application of the might of the Great Path and the merging between ways." Emperor Nan explained, "Hence, the cultivators who can comprehend many types of great paths will have advantages. They can merge the Great Path into the art of supreme attack and create an even more powerful technique. They can also blend and transform the ways to create an entirely new and stronger way." Everyone listened attentively. They had just broken through to the Renhuang Plain. In reality, most of them were still understanding the power of the Great Path. In terms of applying the power of the Great Path, they paled into insignificance when compared to cultivators of the Holy Land of Taichu. This disparity was shown when they were engaged in battles. Emperor Nan had most likely realized this problem, too, so he pointed it out now. "Yi Futian, the fleeting sword technique created by Lord Taishin is very powerful. However, as the battle proceeded, you made the swords resonate with each other. That was your original technique, right?" Emperor Nan asked as he looked at Yi Futian. "Yes." Yi Futian nodded and said, "I named it dust." "Well done. Dust bears resemblance with fleeting, yet it transcends the original. It also fits your way better," Emperor Nan analyzed. "This sword technique cannot be said to be better than fleeting, but when you perform it, it is stronger than fleeting." Yi Futian nodded in strong agreement. This sword was a better fit for himself. Aside from that, the staff technique that he used to defeat his opponent, in the end, was also his original. The 9 heavenly attacks had undergone countless metamorphoses. It had been thoroughly refined. Yi Futian could not say that the technique was more powerful than the original, yet it was a perfect fit for his use. I also practice swordsmanship and have comprehended a sword that is suitable for myself. Today I will show you, Emperor Nan said. He looked at Nan Luotian and said, Len mi Qinghe. Nan Luotian nodded in agreement and passed the Qinghe Divine Sword to Emperor Nan. The Qinghe Divine Sword was originally Emperor Nan's sword, so it resonated with him. When it was held in Emperor Nan's hand, it vibrated and created a drumming in the ears of the audience. It was as though the sword was excited. With the sword in his hand, Emperor Nan flew into the sky. Futian and the rest leaped up and followed him. Keep a distance away from me, Emperor Nan ordered. Everyone stopped in their tracks. The clouds churned in the sky. Emperor Nan wielded the Qinghe Divine Sword in his hand. He casually grasped hold of it. He became one with the sword as though he had merged with the Great Path. In an instant, a terrifying aura of sword enveloped the surroundings with Emperor Nan as its center. The space seemed to be fragmenting. Futian and the rest had a vague feeling that if they entered the range of the sword, they would be instantly crushed into dust by the sword will. The Great Path strikes for simplicity. When you reach a higher cultivation plane, you will no longer need those flashy techniques, Emperor Nan lectured. The simplest way would be concentrating all your energy on one point, not wasting even a bit of the might of the way. It is the strongest technique. As he spoke, his aura became even more terrifying. Everyone could sense that the vast skies seemed to be enveloped by a formless sword will. It was pressuring, but it was not threatening. It was as though they could sense that this sword would not land on them. The Qinghe Divine Sword rang and floated in front of Emperor Nan. Emperor Nan extended a finger and pointed at the Qinghe Divine Sword. Right away, the sword sprang forward and traversed the sky. Swoosh! A dazzling sword light crossed the sky. Everywhere it passed, the space shattered. Futian and the rest were shocked by the sword. In the sky, a dark crack appeared. It was as though the space had been fissured by the sword. All the Great Path around the slit was crushed into dust. The aura in other places dissipated. The crowd no longer felt pressured. In their eyes, only the sword remained. Emperor Nan had merged all his way into the sword. Not a bit of it was wasted. His Great Path was simple and true to the fundamentals. In the Heavenly Mandate Academy, everyone raised their heads and looked at the sky. The hideous slit was shocking to all who saw it. Many disciples of the Heavenly Mandate Academy were envious. Emperor Nan was personally delivering his teachings. Now, the Heavenly Mandate Academy had a good reputation, and they could even invite Emperor Nan over as a lecturer. Unfortunately, the masses would not be able to receive his teachings. They had to first become core disciples of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Then they had to be qualified to enter the cottage before receiving Emperor Nan's guidance. The Qinghe Divine Sword flew back into Emperor Nan's hand. However, Futian and the rest were still in a daze as they stared at the sword. The sword technique appeared plain, yet it contained unparalleled power. The crowd returned to the academy. Emperor Nan returned the Qinghe Divine Sword to Nan Luotian, then he concluded, "All right. All of you train diligently. The future of the 3,000 realms of the Great Path is yours." "Thank you, Emperor Nan," Futian said while bowing. The rest also bowed one after another. Emperor Nan then left the academy. Yaya Yiwuchen, the sword master of Lihan, and many others were swordsmen. This simple sword attack moved them greatly. Some principles were easy to understand, yet they were very difficult to be executed in life. If they could use their power like how Emperor Nan did, their attacks would surely skyrocket in terms of strength. "Emperor Nan is indeed worthy of his fame," Do Zhao exclaimed. "Rumor has it that in the past, countless cultivators died in his hands. However, he is such a scholarly gentleman now. He is gentle because he is guiding us. If he is faced with an enemy, he will most likely traumatize the other party and kill them with a single attack," Futian commented. Do Zhao nodded in agreement. A sword like his was indeed frightening. Even a space slit had appeared because of it. Everyone went on with their own business. Futian also went to train alone. He continued to comprehend the Great Path. In these chaotic times, he had a strong urge to improve his ability. In the higher heavens realm, the ancient golden divine nation was dazzling as though the building was built with pure gold. It was erected on the ground and was more than 10,000 meters tall. To reach the building, one would need to first set foot on the staircase of golden divine nation. Commoners would not be qualified to enter the place. However, on this day, cultivators from all around the realm had gathered in this ancient place. The dynastic overlord of Golden Divine Nation had invited all the forces in the higher heavens realm to come over for a gathering. One by one, the guests arrived. Everyone was startled when they heard the news about the solar realm. Even the top forces were not at ease. If the super forces from the outer realms wanted to take over the forces in the void realm, most of them could not stand against the former. Two perfect examples would be the hidden land realm and the solar realm. There was no suspense in the development of the situation. The reason why the Heavenly Mandate Academy could escape from this fate was that the Academy had formed alliances with various forces. This caused the Holy Land of Taichu to not be able to shake their establishment. Even so, the battle between the Holy Land of Taichu and the Heavenly Mandate Academy still rendered the latter to be in a crisis. Thankfully, the crisis was resolved in the end. In reality, many forces in the 9 realms did not have existences above the Renhuang plane to hold the fort. They also did not have upper-level Renhuang in their forces. Hence, even though their forces appeared powerful, they were actually very fragile. In the past, all the forces had to be wary of each other to maintain the balance of the realm. However, during these chaotic times, they were all at the risk of being eradicated. In the higher heavens realm, only Shangxiao Divine Palace, Golden Divine Nation, and the former Taishan Mountain had giant figures. Other forces had no one who could defend them. Even Lord Taishan was considered relatively new in terms of breaking through to the higher planes. After Gai Qiong returned, Golden Divine Nation had 2 giant figures. On the other hand, Lord Taishan went to the Heavenly Mandate realm. Hence, in the current higher heavens realm, aside from Shangxiao Divine Palace, which could still contend with Golden Divine Nation, the other forces were no match for them. Therefore, all the forces in the higher heavens realm came when Golden Divine Nation invited them. On this day, various forces, including the divine capital of Xiling, Divine Sword Li family, Sky-Burying God clan, and Changfeng clan, set foot in this dazzling golden palace. Outside of Golden Divine Nation Palace Hall, the cultivators met Gai Tsang and Gai Qiong. Gai Tsang was the dynastic overlord, while Gai Qiong was a divine general under the command of Donghuang the Great. Gai Qiong's ability was not any weaker than that of Gai Tsang. The two brothers sat together and emanated a majestic aura. When the cultivators from various forces arrived, they saluted the two brothers since they were weaker. After most of the cultivators had arrived, Gai Tsang scanned the crowd and asked, "Is the representative of Shangxiao Divine Palace here?" Shangxiao Divine Palace has joined the alliance of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, so now many of them are sent to train in the academy, Old Demon Luo from Divine Capital of Xiling replied. Instantly, the atmosphere in the hall turned awkward. In the higher heavens realm, almost all the forces sent a few of their disciples to cultivate in Shangxiao Divine Palace. However, right now, Golden Divine Nation had the intention of ruling over all the forces in the higher heavens realm. In that case, the Holy Land of Cultivating and the strongest force in the higher heavens realm might stand on opposite sides. Besides that, many people had heard rumors about the existence of another force manipulating Golden Divine Nation in the shadows. After their battle with the Holy Land of Taichu, the influence of the Heavenly Mandate Academy had reached a new height. Moreover, they formed alliances with many forces. Hence, it was difficult for outsiders to seize control of the Heavenly Mandate realm. Consequently, some forces from the outer realms had moved their targets to the higher heavens realm. After all, the goal of the top forces from the outer realms was to establish their influences in the 9 realms. It didn't matter much to them which realm they took over. The forces in the Central Emperor realm were the strongest and hence the hardest to take over. The Hidden Land realm was now under the control of dark forces. Therefore, the choices left were limited. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Gaitsong glanced at the various cultivators who arrived. He smiled and said, "Today, the Golden Divine Nation has invited you all here to discuss the fate of the higher heavens realm. Currently, the 9 realms are turbulent, with chaos being stirred up everywhere. The age of turmoil that occurred hundreds of years ago seems to be gradually resurfacing. The status quo in the 9 realms is about to shift. Hence, we have invited you all here to discuss the future of the various forces in the higher heavens realm together." Gaitsong glanced at the various cultivators who arrived. He smiled and said, "Today, the Golden Divine Nation has invited you all here to discuss the fate of the higher heavens realm. Currently, the 9 realms are turbulent, with chaos being stirred up everywhere. The age of turmoil that occurred hundreds of years ago seems to be gradually resurfacing. The status quo in the 9 realms is about to shift. Hence, we have invited you all here to discuss the future of the various forces in the higher heavens realm together." After listening to what Gaitsong said, everyone remained silent. No one spoke up. Their so-called discussion was just a conspiracy. However, there was one point that Gaitsong indeed spoke true of. In the current situation, the forces in the 9 realms would be reshuffled. In the days to come, no one knew who would remain and who would end up in the annals of history. Under such conditions, they could not reject the invitation of Golden Divine Nation. During this age of turmoil, the forces would not dare to offend Golden Divine Nation lightly. Moreover, Gai Qiong was a cultivator working directly under Donghuang the Great. According to my elder brother, his purpose for coming here is because Donghuang the Great does not wish to see the Void Realm being infiltrated by the dark forces. Hence, all of us need to work together and strengthen the higher heavens realm. If the Great Emperor has any orders in the future, we can also contribute our skills for his use, Gaitsong said. He highlighted the relationship between Gai Qiong and the Great Emperor. It was both a reminder and a threat to the audience. What suggestion does the dynastic overlord have? Old Demon Luo asked right then. Divine capital of Xiling had launched a surprise attack on Taishin Mountain back in the day. This old demon Luo had attacked before Lord Taishin had broken through to the next plane. He was cruel and ruthless. He also did not bear any goodwill towards the Divine Palace. Divine capital of Xiling and the Divine Palace had very little involvement with each other. The Heavenly Mandate Academy has gone through a few huge crises, yet the Academy still managed to stand undefeated. Why is that so? Gaitsong said. It is because the Heavenly Mandate Academy knows how to take advantage of other forces. The Academy relies on the cultivators of other forces. It forms alliances with them. Otherwise, with that tiny bit of ability of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, it is impossible for them to survive up until this day. Gaitsong continued, since the Heavenly Mandate Academy can do so, our higher heavens realm can too. Why don't all of us form an alliance and build teleportation grand matrices to connect everyone? Our alliance will unite the entire higher heavens realm. With it, the higher heavens realm will have the power to contend with other outside forces in this age of turmoil. Forming an alliance. Everyone narrowed their eyes. The Golden Divine Nation finally revealed its intention. The motive behind their call for an alliance was most likely to control all the forces in the higher heavens realm. After all, once all of them formed an alliance, Golden Divine Nation would be the strongest force among them. Who could contend with them for the power of control? Many forces were worried about being annexed. Hence, all of them remained silent and did not reply. Everyone had their own axes to grind. No force would easily agree to Gaitsong's suggestion. Everyone can put your worries to rest. I sincerely hope for the alliance among all the forces of the higher heavens realm. I am not trying to dominate the realm and become its ruler, Gaitsong assured the crowd. I truly hope that the higher heavens realm can prosper and not fall behind the other realms during this age of turmoil. Of course, I do not wish to see any force being eradicated as well. Gaitsong continued, prior to this, I was hoping that the Divine Palace would help us. However, it seems like the Divine Palace doesn't really care about our higher heavens realm and has moved on to the Heavenly Mandate realm. I have always heard rumors about a secret zone in the ancestral lands of the Divine Palace. The place is said to be helpful for cultivators to improve the level of their divine wheels when they are breaking through to the Renhuang plane. However, after all these years, how many people in the higher heavens realm have been there? I only know of Huang Zhong having entered ancestral lands before, and Yi Futian too. The divine palace really values Yi Futian, who is from the heavenly mandate realm, Gai Tsang exclaimed sarcastically. Gai Tsang sneered internally as he was speaking. Everyone was greedy. Even these top forces from the higher heavens realm were no exception. The divine palace crowns itself as the holy land for training and delivers its teachings in the higher heavens realm, yet it keeps its best resources from us, old Demon Luo said. After so many years, there is rarely a person who manages to enter the ancestral lands, so I think the place is actually not worthy of its fame. Rumor has it that there is a treasure in the ancestral lands, which can help cultivators to forge a flawless divine wheel. Could it be that the rumor is really true? As old Demon Luo spoke, a glint of greed flashed past his dark eyes. Most likely, only forces at the level of the divine place could possess this kind of divine item. A few of the large forces in the Central Emperor realm had this kind of divine item too. The forces in the divine prefecture were domineering, and their teachings were powerful. They were most likely as powerful as they were due to having rich resources as well. The crowd gathered here had only heard of divine items. They didn't even know whether or not Shangxiao Divine Palace truly possessed such a divine item. Of course it is true, said Gai Qiong, who was beside Gai Tsang. He looked at old Demon Luo and said, "This rumor has been around since many years ago. No one else is more aware of this than me. Shangxiao Divine Palace owns a tablet of the Great Path. It is a remnant from the collapse of the heavenly path. Not only can it help cultivators to forge flawless divine wheels, but it is also beneficial for the training of Renhuangs. However, this divine item will most likely be moved to the heavenly mandate realm in the future," Gai Tsang added. The two brothers echoed each other's words. The audience was well aware that the two brothers were sowing discord between them and the divine palace. Even though the audience was conscious of the brothers' intention, they couldn't help but have some thoughts about the issue when they knew that the brothers were speaking the truth. A divine item. It was a divine item, left behind during the collapse of the heavenly path, which could assist cultivators in forging flawless divine wheels. For some unknown reasons, the divine palace had been keeping such a divine item a secret from them. If this matter is true, then the divine palace is unworthy to be called the training holy land. They are also unfit to teach the way in our higher heavens realm, old Demon Luo said harshly. He agreed with the brothers' point of view naturally, pointing the finger at the divine palace. Divine Swordly family, Sky-bearing God clan and the rest of you, you have cultivators who are training in the divine palace now, right? Gai Tsang asked as he looked at Divine Swordly family and the other few large forces. They nodded in response. Li Dozi, the proud son of heaven of Divine Swordly family, used to train in the divine palace too. Do the juniors who train in the divine palace have access to the ancestral lands? Gai Tsang continued prompting. The few of them shook their heads. One would need to venture into the ancestral lands by themselves in order to train there. However, aside from Huang Zhong, nobody was able to do so in the past hundreds of years. Before this, the cultivators only blamed their failures on themselves. However, they had some different thoughts now. Alright, let's put this issue aside for now. Why did the conversation spiral to talking about the divine palace? As I have mentioned before, what's everyone's decision regarding forming an alliance? Gai Tsang continued to persuade the crowd. Our higher heavens realm must unite and form a single large power. As for forces which can teach the way, don't you worry. Even without the divine palace, there will be another force, which will come to our higher heavens realm to teach the way. Moreover, this other force is better than the divine palace. The audience revealed strange expressions when they heard Gai Tsang's words. They instantly thought of a force. It was none other than the holy land of Taichu, which was a top training holy land of the upper worlds. Not long ago, in the heavenly mandate realm, they had lost in the hands of the cultivators of the heavenly mandate academy. Ever since the holy land of Taichu had been defeated, no one had heard news of them for a while. Now, combining Guide Song's words and past events, the audience had a rough idea of what was happening. Was the Holy Land of Taichu planning to establish their dominance here in the higher heavens realm after they had lost in the Heavenly Mandate realm? Their previous target was the Heavenly Mandate Academy. After they had been defeated, were they switching their target to the Shangxiao Divine Palace? However, it seemed like the Holy Land of Taichu was taking the soft approach this time. They weren't as direct as when they were in the Heavenly Mandate realm. Considering all these factors, the motive of Golden Divine Nation was clear now. They were plotting on seizing control of the higher heavens realm by joining forces with an outer realm's force. Divine capital of Xiling supports the idea of dynastic overlord, Old Demon Luo voiced. During this age of turmoil, everyone in the higher heavens realm should work together. Golden Divine Nation is the strongest force in the realm. With Divine Nation as our leader, I am sure we will be able to protect our higher heavens realm amidst the chaos. This vast asterisk guard. Everyone else from other forces cursed Old Demon Luo in their hearts. Usually Old Demon Luo was extremely arrogant, but now he had actually agreed to this idea so readily. Was he adapting his actions to the present situation? However, this Old Demon Luo was not an honorable man, to begin with. One could tell his character based on his sneak attack in the past. He played dirty tricks. He was willing to do anything as long as it benefited him. Now, he wanted to be the first one to pledge allegiance to the Golden Divine Nation. In the future, he would have some control over the alliance. Brother Luo is sensible, Guide Song praised. It looks like the rest of you will still need some time to consider this matter, but there is no rush. Golden Divine Nation has prepared a feast to welcome everyone. Since you are here in the Palace of Divine Nation, you must drink and feast to your heart's content. You can take your time to consider the alliance. Everyone nodded in agreement. That was their only option now. However, they had already realized that under the current circumstances, they had to fall in line. Golden Divine Nation would most likely not agree if they did not do so. After the various large forces returned home, in the Divine Palace, their disciples left one after another, bidding farewell to the senior figures of the Divine Palace. In the Divine Palace, various rumors began spreading. The rumors painted the Divine Palace in a bad light. The matters that occurred in Golden Divine Nation, naturally, could not be kept secret and reached the Divine Palace. Shangxiao Divine Palace realized that the Golden Divine Nation wanting to form an alliance this time was not merely as simple as forming an alliance of the higher heavens realm. It was possible that they wanted to use them. Yi Futian did not receive the news from the seniors of the Divine Palace. Instead, he heard it from Huang Zhong. They also had an information network in the higher heavens realm, so they knew a thing or two about what had transpired. In the Heavenly Mandate Academy, Huang Zhong and Yi Futian were together. Huang Zhong said to Yi Futian, before Li Daozi left, he had met with his master. Now that the situation is dire, he can only leave for now. Under the current circumstances, Divine Sword Li family does not dare to make a powerful enemy. Hence, they had decided to temporarily leave the higher heavens realm. The Divine Palace was a place for training. They naturally did not have many strict constraints. Each person could make their own choice. Li Daozi still had Divine Sword Li family behind his back. He had to consider the standpoint of the Li family before he made any decision. It was kind enough for him to warn Huang Zhong and Yi Futian. From the looks of it, the forces in the higher heavens realm will make a move on the Divine Palace. Is that true? Yi Futian asked Huang Zhong. Huang Zhong nodded and said, the possibility is extremely high. Yi Futian fell silent. If the Heavenly Mandate Academy meddled in this affair, most likely, the Outer Realms forces would not sit out of it too. However, since they had formed an alliance with Shangxiao Divine Palace, it was impossible for Yi Futian to let the Divine Palace be invaded. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Yi Futian heard about the news and told Lord Taixian. The Heavenly Mandate Academy sent disciples to various forces to invite their cultivators to come and stay at the academy for the time being. They wanted to prepare against all possibilities. Futian heard about the news and told Lord Taishan. The Heavenly Mandate Academy sent disciples to various forces to invite their cultivators to come and stay at the academy for the time being. They wanted to prepare against all possibilities. The higher heavens realm, on the other hand, had been put on edge. Rumors spread over the past few days that the Golden Divine Nation might attack the Divine Palace, the holy land of the higher heavens realm. The Shangxiao Divine Palace had trained a great number of excellent cultivators. Even some Renhuangs from other realms once studied there. Nevertheless, ordinary Renhuangs didn't have the ability to intervene if the Golden Divine Nation truly set their sights on the Divine Palace. Even high-level Renhuangs could hardly pull strings. Nowadays, many of the disciples who came from top forces and cultivated in the Divine Palace had already left the palace. It was easy to imagine how delicate the situation was. However, Futian and the others in the Heavenly Mandate Academy didn't hear the news of the Golden Divine Nation attacking the Shangxiao Divine Palace. They were hit with another bombshell. The Golden Divine Nation did launch an attack. But it was not against the Shangxiao Divine Palace. Lord Taishan and Futian in the Heavenly Mandate Academy were astounded by the report. The Divine Sword Li family was exterminated? Lord Taishan stared at the messenger and repeated his words. He used to cultivate in the Taishan Mountain in the higher heavens realm and was very familiar with the forces in the higher heavens realm. Although the Divine Sword Li family didn't have any living legend, it was a family with great power and rich heritage. They had been the holy land of swordsmanship in the higher heavens realm. Lord Taishan and Futian heard about some news regarding the Divine Sword Li family not so long ago. It was shocking for them to learn that the entire Divine Sword Li family was killed so abruptly. Yes, the Golden Divine Nation and the Divine Capital of Xiling both claimed that the Divine Sword Li family feigned compliance but deliberately undermined the alliance in the higher heavens realm behind the scenes, hindered the progress of forming a unity among forces, and damaged the future of the realm. That was why they took aggressive actions. Although they didn't wipe out the entire Divine Sword Li family, they killed their top cultivators. In addition, the assailants were not those two masters from the Golden Divine Nation. It was people from other forces, the messenger replied. Forces from the outer realms? Lord Taishan asked. Yes. The messenger nodded. Is it the holy land of Taichu? Lord Taishan asked. It's unclear. But it's probably not the same group of people from the holy land of Taichu who came to the Heavenly Mandate Academy last time. We don't know much about the cultivators from the outer realms and couldn't figure out which forces they belong to. However, there is a rumor around the higher heavens realm that the holy land of Taichu is not the only one who joined hands with the Golden Divine Nation. It seems like other forces were in it too. The messenger continued to speak. Lord Taishuan's expression was grave. He didn't expect the Golden Divine Nation to strike the Divine Sword Li family first. They had some connection with the Divine Sword Li family, yet it was never a close relationship. It seems that the Golden Divine Nation is fully prepared this time, said Lord Taishan. The Golden Divine Nation always wants to target at the Heavenly Mandate Academy and, of course, has extensive knowledge of our relationship with the Divine Palace. They knew we had formed an alliance with the Divine Palace a long time ago, and they understand the level of our ability. Under such circumstances, they must have evaluated the situation if they decided to attack. They have another objective besides the Divine Palace, Futian said in a cold voice. Based on what you said, the forces from the outer realms came because of us. Lord Taishan certainly understood what Futian meant. The Heavenly Mandate Academy would antagonize the forces from the outer realms if they helped the Divine Palace. They would make even more enemies if that happened. The Golden Divine Nation has ulterior motives. They attacked the Divine Sword Li family, but the Divine Sword Li family was not their true target, said Futian. The Golden Divine Nation clearly fired at the Divine Sword Li family to deter other forces in the higher heavens realm. In this way, the other forces couldn't even stand by and look on anymore, let alone help the Divine Palace. They had to pick a side. Chances were that they had no choice but to join the Golden Divine Nation's camp and eventually be reduced to its dependent territories. If they dared to defy the Golden Divine Nation, They probably had to think it through whether they were prepared to meet the same destiny of the divine Swordly family. "I will go to the divine palace," said Yi Futian. "You will go?" Lord Taishin asked as he looked at Yi Futian. "Yes, I will go," Yi Futian replied, nodding. By paying a visit to the divine palace, he could express the attitude of the Heavenly Mandate Academy and their willingness to act in unison with the divine palace. His visit would boost the confidence of the cultivators in the divine palace. Meanwhile, it could serve as a deterrent to other forces in the higher heavens realm and warn them not to strike the divine palace when they were down. No one else was more suitable than Yi Futian to take this trip. The divine palace stood behind the Heavenly Mandate Academy and sent in reinforcements without hesitation when the Dark Army was bearing down upon the border. Even if they were not allies, the Heavenly Mandate Academy couldn't stay out this time for the sake of reciprocity. Therefore, they had no choice but to declare war against the Golden Divine Nation if the latter really wanted to fire at the divine palace. After a moment of silence, Lord Taishin nodded and said, "All right. Go ahead." Of course, Lord Taishin supported Yi Futian's proposal. Despite the high risk, the Heavenly Mandate Academy couldn't stand by idly when the Divine Palace was in danger, since the Divine Palace fought for Yi Qingyao in the past. Who would come to help the Heavenly Mandate Academy again if they turned their back on the Divine Palace? "I will ask Little Condor to keep everyone on our side in the loop. We will activate the teleportation Grand Matrix to go to the Divine Palace immediately if anything happened," said Yi Futian. Lord Taishin nodded and watched as Yi Futian leave. The tension in the Shangxiao Divine Palace was palpable in recent days. The disciples cultivating in the Divine Palace had been unable to relax ever since the news arrived. Several disciples gathered in the Divine Palace on this day. Several palace lords stood at the front of the crowd when a senior cultivator of the Divine Palace walked toward them. He looked around the room and spoke loudly. "Rumors have been floating around the Divine Palace these days as several incidents happened recently. I know many of you are very worried." No one broke the silence. Indeed, the cultivators had all been thinking about their futures of late. "I know you all have different plans for yourselves. The Divine Palace is not a clan but a place for people to seek knowledge of the great path together. We have done nothing more than propagating our ideas and imparting information to our disciples. Therefore, the Divine Palace will not ask all of you to undergo such calamity with us. We summoned you here to let you know that anyone who wishes to leave is free to go. Cultivators who are below the Renhuang Plain must leave for safety concerns and may return to the Divine Palace to cultivate after the crisis is over," said the senior cultivator. The crowd was dumbstruck by his announcement. The Divine Palace asked them to leave. They encouraged the disciples who were cultivating in the Divine Palace to leave in the face of a crisis. Moreover, they ordered everyone below the Renhuang Plain to evacuate. There were some rumors about the Divine Palace's self-serving agenda circulating around in recent days. Some cultivators also began to harbor suspicions because of the close relationship between the Heavenly Mandate Academy and the Divine Palace and the fact that the ancestral lands was not open to disciples of the Divine Palace. Nevertheless, all doubts were put to rest now. The Divine Palace only propagated ideas and imparted knowledge. The seniors in the Divine Palace freely let the disciples leave when facing an adversarial situation. How magnanimous they were! The Divine Palace truly was a place established solely to help people cultivate. "Senior, the palaces in the Divine Palace all have considerable strength. Even though the Golden Divine Nation has a long history, could they really be a threat to our Divine Palace?" a junior disciple asked. He hadn't reached the Renhuang Plain yet, but he was worried about the Divine Palace and didn't want to abandon them. "Our Divine Palace wouldn't care so much if it's just the Golden Divine Nation," the senior cultivator said with great confidence as he cracked a smile. "But the situation is much more serious than you imagined. Thus, anyone below the Renhuang Plain has to leave. There is no room for negotiation. Don't be a burden for the Divine Palace." Cultivators below the Renhuang Plain were nothing but cannon fodder once the war broke out. It was meaningless for them to stay since they could hardly withstand any attack. Calling them a burden was accurate, albeit not nice. Furthermore, the senior cultivator intentionally used harsh words to push them out. "Senior, We have been studying here for so long. How can you kick us out so easily? It would be quite embarrassing for us if we cut and run, Renhuang said with a smile. Therefore, it's better for me to stay. I'm going to cultivate if you have nothing else. The man turned around and left as his voice faded. Many people stared at his receding figure and were astonished at his integrity. At the moment, a brilliant light suddenly blazed from behind the great hall. Beams of the dazzling light of space shot into the sky and seemed to have paved an ancient road of the great path. Many cultivators immediately turned their eyes to that direction and covered the area with their divine consciousness. It's the teleportation grand matrix of space. The senior cultivator of the Divine Palace also looked over that way and realized who was coming. Nowadays, only the Heavenly Mandate Academy could directly teleport to the Divine Palace. Someone from the Heavenly Mandate Academy was here. The light grew faint in a short time. A line of people became visible in the divine consciousness, none of them intimidating. Yi Futian was the head of the group, accompanied by his friends. Upon his arrival, Yi Futian moved directly to the area where the cultivators of the Divine Palace had gathered. A strange look flashed across his face when he saw the crowd. He descended from the sky and saluted the cultivators standing on the platform. Greetings from Yi Futian to the seniors of the Divine Palace. Why do you come? The senior cultivator of the Divine Palace asked. It seemed pointless for Yi Futian and his friends to come. Senior, I'm practically a disciple of the Divine Palace even though I currently cultivate in the Heavenly Mandate Academy. I even entered the ancestral lands before. Is it all right for me to come to the Divine Palace to cultivate for a while? Yi Futian asked, smiling. People in the Divine Palace understood Yi Futian's intention the moment he said he wanted to cultivate here for some time. Yi Futian planned to go through the disturbance in the company of the Divine Palace. Considering Yi Futian's current position, his decision to come to the Divine Palace indicated that the Heavenly Mandate Academy behind him would also be backing up the Divine Palace. His arrival signaled the attitude of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. The disciples of the Divine Palace also laughed. Yi Futian was extremely arrogant and puffed with pride when he came to the Divine Palace the first time. He challenged and defeated the most talented cultivators in the Divine Palace and displeased a lot of people at that time. However, as time passed and Yi Futian's reputation grew, most of his peers back in the days were not a match for him anymore. After all, he could easily beat an ordinary middle-level Renhuang nowadays. For all that, no one was disgruntled by Yi Futian's visit this time. Everybody greeted him with a warm, welcoming smile. The cultivators in the Divine Palace are glad to have a chance to learn from Renhuang Yi, a cultivator in the Renhuang Plain said with a broad smile. Many people grinned from ear to ear. No one brought up leaving the Divine Palace. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Yi Futian settled down in the Divine Palace and planned to cultivate there for a while until the crisis passed. Yi Futian settled down in the Divine Palace and planned to cultivate there for a while until the crisis passed. Yi Futian was housed in one of the palaces. Two familiar faces came to visit him at the moment. They were Li Daozi and Li Sun, a pair of brothers who had conflicts with Yi Futian in the past. Both Li Daozi and Li Sun were descendants of the Divine Sword Li family. The clan lord of the Divine Sword Li family fought desperately to help a few promising youngsters to escape and save their lives. These young people came to the Divine Palace, where the enemies couldn't hunt them anymore. Furthermore, the enemy's goal was never to wipe out the entire Divine Sword Li family. Perhaps they felt it beneath them to exterminate the whole family. After all, they still cared about their reputation, and it was not beneficial for the Golden Divine Nation to rule the higher heavens realm later if they pushed too far. Yi Futian was at a loss for words when he saw Li Daozi and Li Sun walking toward him. He didn't know how to console them. Despite their dispute in the past, Yi Futian and the Li brothers also developed a friendship with each other. The brothers were pretty good cultivators back in the days. Yi Futian certainly didn't hold grudges against them. How are you doing? Yi Futian asked. What can we do even if we're not doing well? We probably can't avenge the murder of our families in the future, let alone now. Li Daozi sighed to himself. Deep down, he knew that the Golden Divine Nation was not the only enemy. The top forces from the Divine Prefecture were also involved. Under such circumstances, how strong did they have to become in order to get even with their family's murderers? They felt crushed and disheartened at the thought of the slim chance of taking vengeance. You don't sound like a swordsman in training. Swordsmanship values indomitable spirit and unquenchable hope. How can you abandon yourselves to despair just because the future is uncertain? Yi Futian continued, moreover, nothing is impossible in this world. Li Daozi and Li Sun nodded, yet their expressions were still gloomy. The tragedy that happened to their family was a huge blow for both of them. They were filled with anger and pain while felt completely powerless. Thank you very much, Li Daozi expressed his appreciation. By staying in the Divine Palace, Yi Futian showed to them that he was willing to support the Divine Palace wholeheartedly. Otherwise, it was hard to say if the Divine Palace could survive this calamity. It's quite unnecessary if you meant to thank me for coming to the Divine Palace. I once cultivated in the ancestral lands of the Divine Palace after all, Yi Futian replied with a smile. Li Daozi was stunned for a moment, then nodded slightly. Yi Futian was right. Even Li Daozi had never entered the ancestral lands of the Divine Palace. Yi Futian was virtually a descendant of the Divine Palace. Let's talk about something else. Did the divine capital of Xiling intervene when your family was in trouble? Yi Futian asked. Yes, they did. Li Daozi's eyes were ice cold. He nodded and said, Old Demon Luo was there himself. According to seniors in our family, the divine capital of Xiling was particularly keen and eager when Gai Tsang invited all the forces to go to the Golden Divine Nation to discuss the strategy. The divine capital of Xiling probably set its heart on destroying the Divine Palace a long time ago. You're right, Yi Futian nodded and said. Old Demon Luo wants to benefit from the chaos. He has to show his enthusiasm as he already picked a side. But it seems like Old Demon Luo forgot something. What? Li Sun asked. His divine capital of Xiling doesn't have any legendary cultivator as well. Yi Futian spoke slowly. Besides, Old Demon Xiling may be cunning and despicable, but I'm not some kind-hearted person either. Do you mean? A strange look flashed across Li Sun's face. It looked as though he understood something from Yi Futian's words. Old Demon Luo is so full of himself. The divine capital of Xiling won't be able to see their future no matter how the situation changes in the coming times. A hint of hatred gleamed in Yi Futian's eyes. He continued, the divine capital of Xiling attacked the divine Swordly family for some made-up excuse while they offended me for real back in the days. Not only that, they tried to kill me. Li Daozi and Li Sun exchanged a look and clenched their fists firmly. How could they not fully understand Yi Futian's meaning by now? Yi Futian wanted to attack the divine capital of Xiling in advance. He said he was not some kind-hearted person either. Lord Taishan was generous enough to let it go in the past. But it seems like Old Demon Luo himself is becoming forgetful too, Yi Futian said in a low voice. Let's go talk to the palace lord. Good. Li Daozi nodded in agreement. Yi Futian would practically take revenge for the divine Swordly family if he decided to strike the divine capital of Xiling first. Beyond that, it could also serve as a deterrent. Didn't the Golden Divine Nation slaughter the divine Swordly family as a means to deter the forces in the higher heavens realm? Now, Yi Futian planned to return the favor. The divine capital of Xiling couldn't possibly know everything that happened in the Divine Palace. Cultivators who stayed in the Divine Palace at the moment were all willing to go through the trials and tribulations together with the Divine Palace. At this time, Old Demon Luo, back in the divine capital of Xiling, was still indulging himself in a daydream about carving up the higher heavens realm after their victory. Although Old Demon Luo knew that the Golden Divine Nation always looked down upon the divine capital of Xiling because of the great disparity of power between them, he didn't mind at all as long as he could get a slice of the pie. All he needed to do was to follow the prevailing trend. Right now, the prevailing trend was to destroy the Divine Palace. He had no problem conforming to it. At the moment, many powerful cultivators were gathering in the old demon Shiling's palace in the divine capital of Shiling. All of them were key figures of the divine capital of Shiling. Father, wouldn't we live under their thumb if we leave for the golden divine nation like this? Luo Yuming, old demon Luo's son, asked. He didn't quite understand old demon Luo's decision. Do you think we wouldn't live under their thumb if we don't go? Old demon Luo glanced at his son and answered in a cold voice, we don't have a place in the current higher heavens realm anymore. All we can do right now is to fight for our survival. So what if we live under the roof of the golden divine nation? We can't complain too much when we side with them. They don't like the whining and grumbling. Nevertheless, you should still remember to cultivate studiously. The future of the divine capital is still on your shoulders. If that's the case, why should we go? Luo Yuming continued to ask. The situation nowadays hasn't sharply deteriorated yet. Can you guarantee the divine palace won't charge at us as soon as the war between them and the golden divine nation breaks out? Old demon Luo said, it's a delicate situation right now. The golden divine nation hasn't made it clear that they're after the divine palace. But everyone understands what they have in mind. Apparently, the divine palace knows it too since they are evacuating their disciples already. The divine capital of Shiling will not be safe anymore once the golden divine nation brings its intention into the open. Who can make sure that the divine palace won't launch a desperate counterattack and take us out first? Old demon Luo obviously had been making long-term plans. Nonetheless, he was only taking preventive measures. In his mind, the divine palace was so magnanimous that they probably wouldn't attack the divine capital of Shiling even after the golden divine nation declared war against them, let alone beforehand. Having said that, he still decided to leave for their safety in case anything should happen. Just now, old demon Luo raised his head and looked at the sky. A brilliant golden light shone from the sky where a man came into sight like a god. He was from the golden divine nation. Old demon Luo stared into the void and wondered, why did someone from the golden divine nation come to the divine capital of Shiling right now? Yi Futian went to the Shangxiao divine palace and is going to cultivate in the divine palace. The incoming person said loudly, there was a major power of the great path of space fluctuating in the Shangxiao divine palace before I came here. I'm afraid that the cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy just arrived at the Shangxiao Divine Palace. You should be careful. Old demon Luo frowned slightly upon hearing the news. Yi Futian already went to the Divine Palace? It looked like Yi Futian was going to intervene in the conflict directly. In addition, Yi Futian and other cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy indeed posed a serious threat to the divine capital of Shiling. Apparently, he made the right decision. They had to evacuate for now. Let's go, old demon Luo ordered forcefully. Before his voice faded away, however, they heard someone from far away speaking, Old demon Luo, where are you going? Old demon Luo's face stiffened. He sensed that a lot of powerful cultivators were coming to the divine capital of Shiling one after the other. The overwhelming might of the great path pressed down upon them from the sky. In an instant, a large group of people appeared and stood in different directions in midair. The person who spoke was Lord Taishen. Old demon Luo's expression grew somber immediately. He looked at Lord Taishen and asked coldly, we're honored by your presence. What can we do for you? You led the cultivators of the divine capital of Shiling and made a sneak attack on me in the Taishen mountain on the day when I achieved the breakthrough. Do you remember it? Lord Taishen asked in a resounding voice. Old demon Luo remembered it, of course. He thought Lord Taishen let it out of account since it had been so long ago, and Lord Taishen never brought it up. Lord Taishen indeed had no intention of fussing about it before. But he came to the divine capital of Shiling and raked up the past again. Both Lord Taishen and old demon Luo understood it was only an excuse. Yet it was a lethal one. Lord Taishen was not the only one who came to the divine capital of Shiling on this day. Many extraordinary cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate realm were here, including several demon lords of the Demon God clan and people from the Shao clan and the Dou tribe. They obviously assembled such a lineup to demolish the divine capital of Shiling. Countless people on the ground raised their heads to look at the sky, hearts pounding in their chests. Did Lord Taishen come here to collect the debt? What about the others? I have never met the rest of you, right? Old Demon Luo glanced at them and asked. You probably remember me. Yi Futian sat on a giant prung bird in the sky, looked at Old Demon Luo and said, the divine capital of Xiling tried multiple times to take my life. All of these people are here to demand an explanation on my behalf. Lord Taishen, the divine capital of Xiling is currently an ally of the Golden Divine Nation. Furthermore, the forces in the higher heavens realm have formed an alliance to deal with the trouble from the outer realms. I hope Lord Taishen not to intervene in the affairs of the higher heavens realm, said the cultivator from the Golden Divine Nation. Is the Golden Divine Nation telling me that I'm not allowed to hold Old Demon Luo accountable for attempting to kill me in the past? Lord Taishen cast a quick look at the cultivator from the Golden Divine Nation and said, this matter doesn't concern you. Of course, it's your decision if you want to help the divine capital of Xiling because you consider them your ally. You and I will be enemies going forward. The cultivator from the Golden Divine Nation looked exceptionally grim. I haven't mentioned how the Golden Divine Nation attempted to assassinate me. I advise you not to involve yourself in our grudge against the divine capital of Xiling, said Yi Futian. They had enough reasons to attack the divine capital of Xiling. If the divine capital of Xiling could slaughter the divine Swordly family, why couldn't Yi Futian and Lord Taishen exterminate the divine capital of Xiling as a deterrence? Besides, Yi Futian had been upset at the divine capital of Xiling for a long time. This was an excellent opportunity to wipe them off the map and preclude the possibility of any future trouble. The Battle of the Taishan Mountain is not over yet. Old Demon Luo, let me see if you have made any progress since then. Lord Taishan stepped forward as his terrifying energy permeated the air. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. The cultivator from the Golden Divine Nation was here alone and couldn't change the dynamic at all. On top of that, he vaguely sensed that someone else as powerful as Lord Taishen was nearby as well. He was not capable enough to locate the mysterious person exactly. The cultivator from the Golden Divine Nation was here alone and couldn't change the dynamic at all. On top of that, he vaguely sensed that someone else as powerful as Lord Taishen was nearby as well. He was not capable enough to locate the mysterious person exactly. It meant that the Golden Divine Nation probably couldn't control the situation or affect the results even if they sent more cultivators to the divine capital of Xiling on this day. Yi Futian led a large group of people and rushed here out of the blue with the intention to wipe out the entire divine capital of Xiling and leave no one to cause trouble later on. It was no different from what the Golden Divine Nation did to the divine Swordly family. Besides, Yi Futian and Lord Taishen had legitimate excuses to attack the divine capital of Xiling. But Old Demon Luo suddenly sprang up and made a run for it. Plumes of demon chi billowed and enshrouded his body. No one expected that Old Demon Luo would run away straight away without concern for his offspring and people living in the divine capital of Xiling. It was obvious that Old Demon Luo also realized that the adversary came to the divine capital of Xiling fully prepared. The enemy was composed of some of the best cultivators and was far superior to the divine capital of Xiling. Old Demon Luo couldn't withstand a single blow and had no choice but to run off. He had to harden his heart and make a painful decision since he would only have a chance to avenge if he made it out alive. He only blamed himself for being one step behind. He didn't expect that the Divine Palace would stand back and let people from the Heavenly Mandate realm attack the divine capital of Xiling first. Old Demon Luo, where are you going? Lord Taishin said. His voice reverberated around the boundless void. All of a sudden, millions of string materialized in a crisscross pattern and blotted out the sun. At the moment, everyone felt that the space world transformed into an absolute space. All the cultivators in the divine capital of Xiling raised their heads and saw the inescapable strings of the great path. Each string was as sharp as a sword. Absolute control. Yi Futian glanced at their surroundings, which seemed to have become Lord Taishuan's space of the great path. Yi Futian activated the absolute control. The millions of string vibrated, and the sword will roared, like a terrifying storm pouncing on the plumes of demon chi. Yi Futian's body also vanished from sight. He chased after the dark demon chi, desperately trying to flee. Yi Futian didn't want to make a fuss in the past. Nevertheless, he had no choice but to kill old demon Luo, who stirred up troubles again and again. All the cultivators in the divine capital of Xiling, who felt the overwhelming might, were trembling with fear. In the meantime, other cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy looked out on the divine capital of Xiling with murderous intent. "Go ahead," said Yi Futian. The cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy stepped down, immediately following Yi Futian's order. The formidable energy of the great path of destruction engulfed the divine capital. The Heavenly Mandate Academy had given the divine capital of Xiling so many chances in the past. They might not keep account of the wrongdoings in former times if the divine capital of Xiling behaved themselves. Nonetheless, the divine capital of Xiling was eager to pick a side and made a vain attempt to reap the benefits of the chaos. They sought connections with the Golden Divine Nation and forces from the outer realms to gang up on the Divine Palace. Since that was the case, the Heavenly Mandate Academy might as well obliterate the divine capital of Xiling. "Retreat!" One of the cultivators of the divine capital of Xiling shouted. What could they possibly do in such a situation? They couldn't win this fight. Even old demon Luo took flight himself. To beat a hasty retreat was the only choice they had left. There would always be hope as long as they could survive. Retreat? The cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate realm sneered. Where did these people think they could go? Buzz. A frightening and scorching storm of fire blazed down. Countless sun god swords fell straight from the sky. Divine fire burned in the void and incinerated anyone who was pierced by the swords. The divine elephant emperor transformed into a gigantic divine elephant and stomped toward the ancient and magnificent palaces in the divine capital of Xiling. With the might of the great path enveloped the city as thundering noise filled the air. Everyone felt like their power had been subdued and their movement had been slowed down. The people on the Heavenly Mandate Academy's side were all extraordinary cultivators and authority figures in the Heavenly Mandate realm. Although they might not be a match for old demon Luo, they were more than capable of dealing with other people in the divine capital of Xiling. Lord Taishan could handle old demon Luo. Their goal was to kill old demon Luo and top Renuangs in the divine capital of Xiling. This was a battle without suspense. The ancient buildings in the divine capital collapsed into gentle ruin one by one. Countless people were running through the wreckage, shrieking, and crying in fear. Nonetheless, the cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy didn't chase after anyone who hadn't reached the Renhuang Plain. Other people watched the battle from a distance and thought to themselves, this is the end of the divine capital of Xiling. The messenger from the Golden Divine Nation also knew that the divine capital of Xiling was finished. He was incapable of saving the overall situation. This day was the doomsday of the divine capital of Xiling. Following the divine Sword Li family, another top force was exterminated. The only difference was that the Golden Divine Nation slaughtered the divine Sword Li family while Yi Futian destroyed the divine capital of Xiling. He darted a glance at Yi Futian. A look of fear flashed in his golden eyes. Yes, it was fear. After Yi Futian reached the Renhuang Plain, he established the Heavenly Mandate Academy and formed a strong alliance. Then he charged at the Shun clan and forced them to hand over the people he wanted. As a lower Renhuang, he demonstrated tremendous talents and courage. Based on his attack on the divine capital of Xiling this time, it was obvious that he was different from the old fogies in the divine palace. He was anything but tender-hearted, even though he was willing to go to war for a young girl. On the contrary, he was so ruthless that he had no scruples about wiping out the divine capital of Xiling before the Golden Divine Nation made a move on the divine palace. Yi Futian could overturn the entire 9 realms if not for being limited by his strength at this time. The Golden Divine Nation would definitely become a target of Yi Futian's. This kind of person would become an incredible threat to the Golden Divine Nation in the future. No wonder Gai Qiong said they should take Yi Futian out as soon as possible since they didn't turn out to be friends. Nevertheless, Yi Futian didn't look at the cultivator from the Golden Divine Nation. His eyes fixed on the battlefield when the cultivator from the Golden Divine Nation turned around and left. The divine capital of Xiling offended Yi Futian many times in the past, yet he let those misdeeds slide. Still and all, he came to completely destroy the divine capital of Xiling the moment he got a chance. The cultivator from the Golden Divine Nation couldn't help but think if Yi Futian would do the same to the Golden Divine Nation when he had the opportunity one day. But the Dragon Master punched a master cultivator of the divine capital of Xiling with a loud thump. Bearing the frightening power of the dragon god, the master cultivator's body cracked and blew up abruptly. A similar scene happened across the battlefield. Meanwhile, two people came into sight in the sky. As high up as they were, their figures were still vaguely visible from the ground. Many people raised their heads to look at them. Covered in blood, old Demon Luo was in a sorry state. The musical note of the Reaper made old Demon Luo despair. His clothes were stained with blood, and his once domineering body was tied up with the strings of the Great Path. He who perpetrates unjust acts is doomed to destruction. I will send you to your grave today, said Lord Taishen. He stretched out his hand and pointed at old Demon Luo's direction. People watched everything in the sky vanish like smoke following Lord Taishuan's motion. The Great Path was disrupted and destroyed everything. Even space was twisted by the energy. Old Demon Luo roared with rage, unwilling to give up. But his body contorted, and he slowly dissolved into thin air. Lots of people who were watching this were left aghast. Old Demon Luo was quite influential in the higher heavens realm for many years. Was he killed just now? Old Demon Luo's body soon crumbled little by little under their watch. It seemed like the entire space was disintegrating. Before long, old Demon Luo disappeared completely, buried under the void. The cultivators of the divine capital of Xiling grew more and more despondent and sorrowful. They never thought such tragedy would befall them. The divine capital of Xiling was a top force thriving in the higher heavens realm for so long. How could it end like this? It only took one battle. From now on, the divine capital of Xiling became history. The battle continued, but not for too long. After a while, people from the heavenly mandate realm took a brief look at the ruins on the ground, then turned around and left. Onlookers in the distance flew to the divine capital of Xiling after the army of the Heavenly Mandate Academy was gone. They stood on the remains and felt desolate and bereft. Even a top force could be obliterated in next to no time. What was the purpose of cultivation after all? What was the point of their existence? Many people were pessimistic and skeptical about the future upon seeing the ultimate defeat of a top force. The divine capital of Xiling was one of the best forces. When could the ordinary cultivators reach their level? Perhaps they would never get that far. Yet they might still be annihilated just the same even if they became as strong as the divine capital of Xiling someday. Unless they could advance to the highest level. Of course, there were also some people who began to look for treasures in the ruins rather than being sentimental. All they could see were opportunities. An age of unrest brought forth great heroes. Another group of influential figures would emerge in the newly changed world. Some people rose, some people fell. The news about the massacre in the divine capital of Xiling spread throughout the higher heavens realm and shocked every force in no time. The Golden Divine Nation was certainly the first one to receive the news. Raving mad, they understood that the Heavenly Mandate Academy destroyed the divine capital of Xiling for the sake of the Golden Divine Nation, same as how the Golden Divine Nation slaughtered the divine Swordleaf family with the divine palace in mind. The destruction of the divine capital of Xiling indicated that the Heavenly Mandate Academy officially entered the game in the higher heavens realm. Moreover, they joined hands with the divine palace. It was difficult to predict who could last till the end. The groups stuck in the middle were put in an even stickier situation. The Sky-Burying God clan and the Changfeng clan were in a constant state of anxiety. They could be wiped out no matter which side they chose. Despite being the top forces in the higher heavens realm, they sadly discovered that they were nothing more than cannon fodder in the game between the Heavenly Mandate Academy and the Golden Divine Nation. They were on the horns of a dilemma with no ability to control their own fate. It was undoubtedly a cruel situation for them to be in. Even so, they had to make a decision. The Golden Divine Nation was pushing them, and the Heavenly Mandate Academy was warning them as well. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.